Amnesty International is putting pressure on Saudi Arabia to free many prominent women detained a year ago. The rights group described the Saudi crackdown as a year of shame. Dozens of writers, academics and journalists were arbitrarily arrested. Many of them have not been able to communicate with their families and have had no legal representation. During court appearances, women reported being tortured and sexually abused in detention. 7 detainees were released in the past 2 months, but many more face prison terms for making statements seen as critical of the Saudi government. Mishra-Newbery is the Interim Executive Director of Women's March Global, and she joins us by Skype from Geneva. Tell us more about your sense of what's happening here.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been 1 year since the imprisonment and the roundup of the Saudi women human rights defenders. Everyone needs to remember that these are the same activists that advocated for the lift on the driving ban that the Saudi kingdom so prominently touted as their great reform. Vogue Arabia even covered this with, a prominent cover. And these activists were arrested just 1 month before the lift of the driving ban. Since then, Saudi Arabia has continued in gross violation of human rights. And this has been widely reported by so many grassroots organizations and even the United Nations.
And during court appearances, women reporting being sexually abused and tortured in detention.
Yes, in October of 2018, after the brutal murder of Jamal Khashoggi, there were reports released in November that the detainees and the activists that were imprisoned faced really horrid reports of torture. And this has not been denied by the Saudi kingdom. Saudi Arabia sits on the Human Rights Council, and it still is an immense violation of these rights, and these women have been temporarily freed, but they are not fully free, and there are still some that are still in prison.
Are there any signs of progress at all for women's rights in Saudi?
It's a hard thing to say. I think that there are a lot of grassroots organizations. We are part of a coalition of 6 other organizations that are fighting to really highlight the gross atrocities in Saudi Arabia. But the kingdom itself has support from the United States, from France, from UK, from Canada, countries that many people don't even realize are supporting Saudi Arabia in a massive way. Billions of dollars in arms sales to Saudi Arabia to lead the war in Yemen. Male guardianship is still an immense issue, and we see Saudi women escaping. We know the story of Rafa, who was finally granted asylum in Canada. We know the stories of so many women that are fleeing for their lives out of Saudi Arabia. So although it seems very grim, there are a lot of people that are fighting for Saudi women and for the freedom and release of Saudi activists.
What kind of pressure do you think can be brought to bear to effect change?
That's a great question. As part of this coalition, we have a petition which has close to 250,000 signatures on it, calling for the immediate and unconditional release of Saudi activists. We also have been advocating at the United Nations, and we saw finally for the first time in March of 2019 at the Human Rights Council, Iceland led 36 member states to publicly call out Saudi Arabia for the first time ever and demand the immediate unconditional release of Saudi activists. So advocacy is working, international pressure is working, grassroots movements are working, and the millions of people that are concerned about this issue, it is all working, but we are facing immense challenges.
Really good to hear from you on this. We do appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.